Do you ever feel stuck in your body or like just sick and tired of being sick and tired? I am so excited for you to hear today's episode. She is now a new friend of mine. We recorded this in September, and I love watching all of her travels and her family, and I cannot wait for you to get to know her too. Welcome to Empowering Time Markers, the podcast where we share inspiring stories, empower listeners with business tips, and create connections. I'm your host, Tia Bottum, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on this journey of growth and empowerment. Our guest today is a certified mindset and energy coach and a homeschool mom. She studies habits, mental health, and mindset. One day, she was sick and tired of being sick and tired, that she decided she couldn't live like that anymore, which led to her losing weight and getting fit. Please welcome Leslie Zwick. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, please share your story.
I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to my story. At least I hope so. About 7.5 years ago, as you said in your intro, I was simply sick and tired of being sick and tired. I am a mom to 3 kids. My kids now are 16, 14, and 12, 12, almost 13. And so they were little at the time. And I was overweight. We were financially in terrible shape, emotionally, mentally. I was in really bad shape, just depressed and anxious, and all of the things that so many young moms struggle with. My oldest has a long term illness that thankfully she is healthy and she's stable, but it always played on my mind and sat on my shoulders as when is the other shoe going to drop? And about 7.5 years ago, I got to a point where I looked in the mirror and I said, I can't live like this any longer. And I was walking around. I considered myself a professional yo dieter. I had been up and down for many years, pretty much my entire adult life. And at this point, I was on an upswing again. And I knew that physically I couldn't do this. I didn't have any energy to chase my kids. I didn't have any energy to do anything with my kids. We were in such bad financial shape. We could barely pay our bills, but I had no self confidence to raise my own kids at the time, that we were hiring babysitters to come help take care of them. And I was working from home. The stuff that I was doing was all from home. But I was just in a really bad place. And I decided no more. I looked in the mirror. It was the morning of my 39th birthday. And I looked in the mirror and I said, I can't do this anymore. I cannot, when I turn 40 next year, I cannot be 75 plus pounds overweight. I cannot feel this way anymore. And that was when I just drew the line and said, enough. And I started on my journey. It first started as a physical weight loss piece. I needed to lose the weight. We all have our starting point. And that was all I could see. That was what I said. Okay, I know that if I get to X weight, things will be better. And so often we think that. I'm going to spoiler alert, that doesn't make you better. Okay. And I really knew that because I had done it before, but it was a start. I knew that's where I had to start because that's what I knew how to start. And I actually, for the first time ever, reached out for help. I had done every program under the sun, you name it. I've done them all, but I had never really let anybody help me with it. I was all, I can do this on my own. And I think a lot of moms feel that way. I know a lot of moms feel that way. I work with a lot of moms. And but at this time I said, I can't do this alone. I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I actually reached out and I got a coach, and she started coaching me and started helping me with the weight loss program, and started more than the weight loss, but the mindset, and helping me start to shift my mindset and look at myself differently and build a new relationship with myself. And very quickly the weight started coming off. And that's science. If you follow your program, the weight's going to come off. But I started doing all of the other pieces, and I really started like something clicked in my brain that I can't live like this any longer. And everything changed, and people started reaching out to me and saying, what are you doing? Because they had all seen me lose the weight before. Previously, I had lost 100 pounds 2 years prior. And then this was 70, I put on 75 of those 100 that I had lost. And that was where I was partially so depressed because I had worked so hard to lose it. And here it was, boom, back on. And people started asking me, what are you doing? Because they were watching not just the weight come off, but my confidence start to soar and my whole life start to change. And I was with my kids a lot more and doing a lot. And it was just everything, my whole demeanor changed. And I decided I wanted to pay it forward and help other people do the same thing. So got into the weight loss and wellness coaching business and started coaching other people to get healthy. And over the last 7.5 years, I've helped a whole lot of people lose a whole lot of weight. And it was amazing. And it's wonderful. I still do that. That's definitely still a piece of what I do. But not long into it, about probably a year and a half into it, people started coming to me and saying, we don't need the weight loss. We don't want to do the weight loss program that you're coaching, but we love what you're doing with the mindset. Can you coach us? And I knew how to do the weight loss, right? Like it was still definitely a confidence piece. I knew how to do that. I knew what those pieces were. And I was like, I don't know that I can do that. I don't know what to do with that. Right? So I just follow me on Facebook and follow what I do. And you'll get it by osmosis was my response because I didn't really know what to do with it. And about 2.5 years ago, enough people had been asking me this over and over. And I had been doing enough. Not only did I work with a health coach, I started working with a mindset coach and I started doing all these other things. And about 2.5 years ago, I finally said, you know what? I can build a mindset program. I know what I'm doing. I've coached a whole lot of people over the last, at that point, 5 years doing this. I know what I'm doing. So I built my first mindset coaching program and it took off and it was fantastic. And I built a whole framework that I called the Healthy Habit Blueprint. And started doing that as a group coaching program, which was amazing. And at that point, I've always been into energy work. I've always been into holistic healing. And but I kept those things separate. Like that was what I did over here with my family and over here with my coach, with my clients. Like I talked about it some because it came into the mindset work, but it wasn't officially meshed into my business. And 2 years ago, in November of 2021, I got into a system that uses frequencies and tones. And I actually, again, got into it for myself and for my kids. My son struggles with ADHD and dysgraphia and all the stuff. And I wanted to give him a way to naturally gain his focus and be able to do that. And my oldest daughter, the one who has the rare blood disorder, she has some anxiety and all the stuff. And so I really wanted to help both of them naturally. And my middle daughter, we all could use this. So I got into the system of using the energy and the frequencies and tones. And I started with them and saw a huge transformation. With me, with my family, with my parents, my sisters, everybody, we all started using it and we saw quickly what it was doing for our mindset and just feeling and how it was really helping us shift our lives. And so I quietly started introducing this to some of my weight loss clients and saying, hey, you just test this out and see what you think. See how this makes a difference. And every one of them that started using it, their weight loss picked up and their mindset shifted. And it really started to make this big transformation. And I was like, okay, this needs to be part of what I'm doing. And at that point, then I started doing some other investigating and other learning and other diving deeper into some things. And a lot of people who use the frequencies and tones that I use, a lot of them are certified in emotion code and body code. And I started diving into that. And I ended up getting certified in emotion code and body code. My father unfortunately passed away last November. He was diagnosed in March of 2022 with a stage 4 glioblastoma. And it was right as I was in the middle of doing all my energy work stuff. And he was very much also into energy work and spirituality and all of that. And I believe everything happens at the right time. I believe it's all dropped into our laps exactly when we need it. And it was when I started getting into body code, emotion code and body code was right as he started his decline. And I spent his last 2.5 months with him by his side. And he never took a drop of any kind of pain medication those last entire 2.5 months because I was doing energy work on him the whole time. Anytime there was any kind of issue, he would call out to me and I would do energy work on him. And through that, it was, okay, this is what I really need to be doing. And I made that shift. And during that course, so I got certified in emotion code and body code. And I got certified officially as a mindset coach during this period of time. And it's all just grown and shifted. And I call myself a whole body, like holistic life coach, right? It's head to toe, it's physical, it's emotional, it's mental. I can definitely, like I said, I work with people in the weight loss piece, but my main goal is to help people, especially women, but anyone reconnect in here with who am I truly in here so that they can better connect with everybody else around them, so that they can tap into that true version of themselves. And it's been an amazing, crazy ride, how all the things have fallen together. That's sort of my story in a nutshell. Big nutshell.
Wow. So I have a couple of questions. First of all, could you tell me what body code is?
So body code is the second level of emotion code. So have you ever done
Never
anything
heard of
with
this. Tell me.
Okay, so you've never heard of any of it. Okay.
None of it. I know the vibration. I use that. I do the YouTube vibration when I was going through my health.
Okay. So what I do with the frequencies and that's like something like deeper than anything that you would find on YouTube. But what emotion code is, I connect with the person's energy and find we all have trapped emotions, and emotions are just energy, right? We're 99.999% energy. Okay. So any emotion that we feel takes 90 seconds to run from head to toe. Positive, happy emotions, we let them go. We let them travel through us, no problem. Right. But when we have an emotion that's a quote unquote negative emotion, and there's no such thing as a bad emotion or a good emotion,
Right.
they're just emotions and they're just energy and they're all actually good. It's just how you use them. But we all have these times when emotions hit us and our brain jumps in and says, I don't want to feel this right now, or I don't want to deal with this right now. And we take it and we shove it away in a corner, right? And especially as kids, a lot of times we're taught, don't show the emotion, don't cry now, don't get angry, don't, right? All those things. So what do? We take that energy of it and we shove it in the corner of our body someplace and we hold on to that energy. And it continues to vibrate in our body at a very low frequency. And negative energy attracts negative energy, just like positive energy attracts positive energy. So it literally gets trapped in different places in our body. And this is where, when we hold on to it for too long, it causes disease, dis-ease. We're uncomfortable. As an emotion code practitioner, and then next level as body code practitioner, I connect to the person's energy, find those trapped emotions, and help them release them, help them clear them out. And for a better explanation of this, like how it works and what it does, think of your body as a big parking lot, okay? Your heart's a parking lot, and there are trucks that come in and out, bringing in and out what it needs and taking away what it doesn't need. And this energy, this negative energy, this whatever, this unprocessed emotions get stuck in one of those parking spots. So the truck tries to come in and it can't get in, or maybe it can get partially in, or maybe just a little car can get in there and it can't do what it needs to do. And if it sits there too long, function starts to reduce because your body's not taking in and bringing in and taking away what it needs to bring in and take away. So that's where we start to feel different things. Sometimes if you hear of people who get stomach aches because they're nervous, or headaches, that's all what that usually is. It's unprocessed trapped energies. And so it literally causes dis-ease. And when we release it, sometimes just like that, it'll go away. You'll feel amazing. If it's something that's been there for too long, the body then physically starts to break down and it has to actually heal. And sometimes you get too far past. But we can clear any of that. We can release any of that so that the body can then start to function properly again.
So what's the difference between that and Reiki?
Reiki is just Reiki taps in differently to the energies. There's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different energy modalities.
But it's okay, so it's just a different modality.
It's a different modality, right?
Huh.
And honestly, emotion code and body code are a lot easier. I studied Reiki at one point quite a while ago. Emotion code and body code were much easier to grasp onto and learn how to do very quickly. My 14-year-old learned how to do it, and she still comes to me and has me do it on her instead, but she knows how, because I'll just say, you know how to do this. Yeah, but I have somebody who does it for me,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's easier when somebody else does it for us.
Oh
But
my
yeah, it's powerful. It's really powerful. And to
Yeah.
see the things that flip really quickly. I have a client who was on a session with me last week, and she, for a long time, has had equilibrium problems and dizzy problems and all this stuff. And she was like grasping at straws because her doctors for the last 2 years have not been able to answer any questions. They haven't been able to do anything. And a friend of hers sent her to me and said, you have to have a session with Lesley. You have just see if this works. And we did one session last week, and she got back on for a second session today. And she said, I haven't had any problems with my equilibrium. She said, I haven't had to use my cane at all since I last met with you. And I believe it. I know I do this all the time, but it's amazing. I still love it when I hear it. I'm not totally surprised, but it's still, because we cleared the stuff. And so today last time we focused on the equilibrium. Today we focused on the stuff with her dizzy spells. And actually at the end of the session, there are certain things that trigger dizziness, and we were doing it and it's not triggering me to be dizzy. So we cleared what that stuff was that doctors have never been able to say why or what, or because it's not always, that's not what it's about, right? Our bodies are pretty amazing. They can heal themselves when we give it the ability and to clear it, to heal itself.
Yeah, that's amazing. You're like a little God worker, right? That is amazing. I love that, and I love that you went into that, and what a godsend you were for your dad. Like,
It
how
was,
amazing is that?
it was
And
one of those things that, like I said, it was dropped into my lap at the time. That was my gift. And that was a gift that was given to me to be able to help him. And my oldest kept saying, why can't you save him? My job wasn't to save him. My job, though, was to help him transition from this world to the next as peacefully and as possible with zero pain. That was the gift I was given.
really his gift through you.
Yeah, it was a gift. It was a gift for everybody.
I'm so glad that you did that. What a miracle, really.
Yeah.
And now you're helping all these other people.
And now
That's so cool.
yeah.
What is there anything in the works that you want to add? Anything you're going to study more of or you're interested in?
So I'm always interested in new things, which people laugh because they're like, what's next? So I'm finishing up. Actually, I'm in a certification for another technique that's called the cellular alignment technique, which is it uses a combination of emotion code and body code and breath work and tapping. It connects all of the different pieces in. So I'm about 2/3 of the way through that certification. And I already working with clients using it. I finished all the coursework of how to do. So I use that on with clients already. Now I'm finishing up the back end piece of it. After that, I don't know, that I always believe that the next piece of whatever it is I'm supposed to have will come to me when I'm supposed to have it.
Yeah.
So right now, that's where I'm at, using all of these pieces together. I use the frequencies and tones. I use the emotion code. I use in body code, and I use the cellular alignment technique and the mindset piece because different people need different things when they come to me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love is that I have so many different tools that it's not just one thing. And I'll get on a call with a client thinking we're going to go one direction and we get into a conversation and boom, we make a right turn and use something else that I have. And that's always it's always fun because I never really know where the conversation is going to go but I always know that when we get off, there's going to be big shifts. That's what's powerful is I never get off a call that a client hasn't had some sort of big shift in that call.
Oh, I believe it. So, with your frequency, do you do like sound bathing or what do you?
So what it does is the client sends me a 10-second voice clip and I run it through the system and it scans the voice and it reads the frequencies. It reads over 12 notes, 9 octaves over 12 notes. And it reads between 8 and 10,000 different frequencies within each note. And then it produces out balancing harmonics. So it sees where you're most out of balance and it produces tones that have the balancing harmonics or the balancing frequencies based in back into it. So then I send those back to the client to listen to. I also teach people how to use the software themselves. So clients have two options. One, they can have me do it for them, or two, I can teach them how to do it themselves and they can get the software themselves and use it. That's the baseline. That's the number one thing that people use from this, but this software can do full body scans. So it scans the entire body and will tell you energetically, it'll do your full vitals, it'll do a full comprehensive scan of every organ, every bone, every muscle, every cell, everything. And it tells you what's out of balance energetically and it'll optimize and help put it back into balance. They just added a new affirmation section to it that you can record your affirmations in there that are then also given with the binaural tones to listen to help your body absorb it better. It's an amazing, the whole piece. It's been life changing. My daughter, my oldest one, who has this rare blood disorder, so she has an annual bone marrow biopsy done every year. And so her condition is 1 in 10 million in pediatrics. She was one of the youngest to ever be diagnosed. Most people, it's pretty rare even in geriatrics, but it's a geriatric disease normally. And anybody who has this as an elderly person, if they live long enough with it, something else doesn't take them, it's always a pre-leukemia condition. In kids, they have no idea. So she has an annual bone marrow biopsy done every year to watch for the mutation of her cells to make sure that too many aren't, we all have mutated cells in our bone marrow. That's just normal. But they want to make sure that she's within that normal range and there aren't too many of them and it's not already starting to flip to leukemia. And she is very consistent with using this system. She runs her tones every day, listens to them because I told you we started with it. She was doing it for her anxiety.
Yeah.
So she does it every day. She's really consistent, uses them like somebody who is trying to make a change in their life would use them. And she didn't even realize what it was doing on a cellular level for her. And she had her bone marrow biopsy done in May, and the results came back. And her doctor called me absolutely floored. If she did not have a diagnosis, she would not have a diagnosis. She had fewer mutated cells than a normal kid in her age range anyway. Like it was like they were pretty much non-existent. And we all have mutated cells, just that's what happens in our bodies.
Mm.
And when we saw them, they called me with the results over the phone and we went in for their report. They're like, we've never seen anything like this. And it's 100% that. This helps that body shift and energetically stay healthy and heal. And because she gets all very nervous, understandably, before these assessments.
Yeah.
And as they said this to her, I was like, I told you, you're fine. She takes medicine to make sure that she does, because her body produces too many red cells, white cells, and platelets.
Okay.
And it still does. I said, you have to continue to take your medicine to keep those numbers down, but they're all producing healthy cells.
Yeah.
And that's all the energy work that we do. No
That's
question, hands
all.
down. It's amazing. Like, it's crazy. It's not crazy though. I know it. I see it. It's not just her. I see it in other clients and results that people get and have. And it's just So it's powerful stuff what you can do when you start to tap into the energy and use it, you know.
First of all, amazing. Like, it's just amazing. And second of all I kept thinking was like, my poor mama her. Like, I felt for you, all the things that since you had her, like the worrying and all of that, like you've gone through it, you know? And I just wanted to like hold some space for you because that is a lot. Because I was trying to piece together, like, why did you have all of this yo yo and what was going on? But as you talked about your babies and going through that, it's sort of like, wow. What does your husband think of all this?
So my husband is very go with the flow. Like this was not like, the energy stuff and all the stuff he just smiles and nods at me, but he knows it works. I mean, it's not his thing, but he'll ask me to do it, especially with the tones. So there's the inner voice tones that I was talking about, but there's also another set of tones, which are called Cephi tones, which are subtle energy frequency imprinter. They're ones that nobody listens to, but they're sent through the quantum field. And so I will tell you when we have a child having a meltdown, if I turn on a certain playlist that is inner peace and tranquility, and within under a minute, whoever is melting down stops. Like it's like magic. So he will he'll be like, turn on the tones. Something's going on. If there's an issue, even if I'm not home, and he'll text me and he's not home, but turn them on. Because it doesn't matter. I can be anywhere. I actually took my middle daughter on a trip to Israel in March. And one of my kids was not happy while I was not home. And he texted me and we need some tones going. And I was in Israel and turned them on. And 2 or 3 minutes later, he texted me, he's okay, I'll call him on the front. And he didn't have to, before we even step in and try to calm anybody down. It's pretty cool, the power of that. So he knows that. It's funny because he doesn't necessarily step in and use it because he could do it. He knows how to do it, but it's my thing. And that's okay.
Are you into, because so everything has a frequency, right?
Right.
Like
Yep.
trees and all of that. That's why like getting out in nature is
Yep.
so good for you. Now, are you into essential oils and all of that?
Yep.
Okay. Let me tell
Yep.
you a funny story just real quick because of that.
Okay.
'Cause I know that you're into the frequency stuff. Same. So I, back in the day, did the essential oil stuff, and my husband at first was like, "Well," but then when he still uses it more than me. Like he loves it. Like dives right in. And it's just so funny because you wouldn't think that he's a soldier, but he used to have him in his little office going, and
Right.
yeah, still does his laundry with us. Loves it. But I definitely agree. So do you have a time thing with electronics? Do you try to, like, get certain things, like, not on around you, like the cell phones or TVs on?
We try. So I have EMF blockers all over the house, and this is an EMF blocking pendant, and I have as much of it as I possibly can, but unfortunately,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's everywhere. You can't avoid it. And especially homeschooling 3 kids who do stuff online, it's
Right,
just
right.
there. But my kids all have pendants, and they wear them all the time as well. My husband smiles and nods at me about that, and so I have blockers on his computer and on his stuff, but he won't wear the pendant, but whatever. There's only so much I can do. And actually the scanner can send out the Cephi tones as EMF blocker. So I have that. That's also constantly running targeted towards our whole house. So I do what I can to try to block some of that stuff and to clear some of that stuff from everybody.
Do you have a shop on Amazon or anything for those kind of like the pendants and
So
stuff?
not on Amazon. I have a company that I work with that I hook people up with
Okay,
when
awesome.
they
Is it connected to your website?
it is not currently, but it will be. My website is still so it will be connected. It just
Awesome.
everything's still being built. I'm redoing all of that. So it will be.
Awesome, and I'll have all your
Yeah.
links in the description and
Okay.
show notes, so
Awesome.
just in case you guys are wondering, and if you're just listening and you're not saying it's very beautiful, I love your necklace, so
Thank you.
I was like, I kinda that's
Yeah,
nice."
and they have them all different shapes. They've got all different stuff. I just wanted the plain because it goes with everything, but they've got several of them, and they work. I have, I think my daughter took my EMF detector, but if I put that on set my EMF detector down on my computer and it shows, and I put this on top of it, it, like, clears out, so it definitely is powerful.
That is
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah.
10 years ago, did you know anything of this kinda stuff?
A little bit. So, I'm growing up, my father was into some energy work. So I knew a little bit. I knew meditation. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Silva method. It's a meditation kind of thing, but it's moving energy. And when I was about 6, 7, my father got us all into it. We all took classes and we did that as kids. I was the youngest, and my sisters were 6 and 8 years older than me, but we all did it. So it was always ingrained in me. And then I pushed it aside because at that point, who did that stuff? That was weird. I remember like my friends were like, what are you doing? How are you? Like when I was a kid, I could use my mind to bend silverware and make them turn into all these crazy things. And then I had a friend who thought it was the weirdest thing and thought I was weird because of it, whatever. And so I shoved it away in a corner and said, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. But I always had that connection to energy. And that's all that is, right? Everything. This is only a pen because it's energy slowed down, right? Everything is just energy. You slow it down and it becomes solid. That's science. Einstein talks about that. Tesla talks about that, right? Everything is energy. And so that's all that was doing. And I was able to tap into that as a kid. I don't know how I did it. I don't think I could do it. I probably could if I really wanted to. Now I could probably tap back into it.
Yeah.
But that's what they taught me to do but I really shoved that away because it was weird and it was whatever. And so it was
Very
always there. And then later on, as I was started getting more into it, and I wanted to acknowledge that I had this gift. And I started working with other energy healers and things to shift my own life. And I came back into it. And the world is going that way now. So many people now realize that even my husband, who's not totally into it, but he knows it's real. There's no question. He had not so long ago, he wasn't feeling well and he went to urgent care. And instead of asking me to work on him, he went to urgent care and he came home and he said, I have a sinus infection. And they wrote me a prescription for antibiotics. And I looked at him and I said, don't take those. I said, don't fill that yet. I said, do me a favor, let me work on you. And if you don't feel better in the morning, then you can fill it. He was like, okay, fine. Well, it's another 24 hours. So I worked on him and he woke up the next morning and said, how do you feel? He's, I'm fine. I was like, okay, yeah. Right. Like I cleared the energy and his body could heal itself. And he never needed to fill that prescription of antibiotics. He could have saved the copay of going to urgent care.
Was your dad part of the hippie movement?
Not at all.
No? Okay.
No.
My mom
No.
was. So I was just wondering if that was.
Yeah, but my father was always very spiritual. So he wasn't part of the hippie movement. And he wasn't younger. He was very much the athlete and he was the jock and he was the businessman. And then when he was 40, he had a dissecting aortic aneurysm. And we always said that my father had 9 lives, like he should not have survived that. And at that point, that's when he started coming back to, we're Jewish. And so that's when he started coming back to practicing Judaism more. And that's when he started looking into spirituality. And that's when he started really diving into more of those kinds of things. And that was when he started getting into the energy work. He came from the Judaism side, not from the hippie side, but it's all the same. It's all energy, right? It's all the same pieces of it.
What's interesting is I see the correlation of in your family with 40. Like you guys have a huge transformation at 40.
Yes. That was for me and for my father.
Yeah. It's just interesting.
Yeah,
I
it
wanna
is.
look into that.
Yeah.
So that's really cool because I like numbers and stuff, and I just saw the correlation of and
Yeah.
that's interesting. What an amazing man to grow up with. That's
Yeah.
cool. And it's cool that you got that, especially with your siblings being so much older. So
Right.
than you. So you got a different dad than they did probably.
But I got a very different dad than they did. It was interesting because when he passed away and my oldest sister spoke and then my middle sister and I, who were very close, we spoke together. But it was very interesting to hear the difference of what my oldest sister said in her memories versus our take on it also. And even my memories. Like when I heard it, I was like, I don't remember that version of him so well because by the time he got sick, I was 7. She was already a teenager. So it was a whole different life.
Isn't that interesting?
So, yeah.
I'm 4 and 5 years older than my brother and sister, and we have very different like vibes of like how we grew up. So it's
Right.
it's so interesting when there is a gap. And my kids are 5.5 years apart. So I know that my son is getting a very different mom than my daughter did.
Right.
But they're both awesome. I'm awesome. So like it
Right.
works out, right?
It works I mean, you know what? I'm a believer. It's all how it's supposed to be, right?
So tell me, since you're an entrepreneur and you've been doing this for a while, what are your top 3 tips that you could give to an entrepreneur that's just beginning or wants to go on a journey?
Right. So first thing is allow yourself to dream, right? That's really the biggest thing. Allow yourself to dream. Allow yourself to envision what things could be. Don't get lost and bury your head in the sand in that dream, but first start to envision what could things be, right? So many of us get stuck in this hamster wheel of where we are right now and this world of sort of catastrophe. And I can't do anything new because It's scary. And face the scary, right? Step into the scary. Basically, do it scared is really all those things. The scarier it is, probably the more right it is. All these things that might be scaring you, nobody died from it. Nobody died from these things. Nobody died from having conversations with people. Nobody died from posting things on social media. If they're trying to, that's where you're going to try to market. Nobody died from doing any of these things. So really step into that. That's my biggest number one tip. Number two, get a mentor. Don't try to do this alone. Right. That was the biggest shift for me was, first of all, I talked about that when I actually lost the weight and have kept it off was because I had a coach and I still have a health coach that I speak to. I know how to do this. I've coached a whole lot of people to get healthy. I still speak to my health coach every single week because we all need somebody to coach us. We all need somebody there to just be a different sounding board. We're not meant to do this alone. We are not supposed to be solitary people. If the pandemic didn't teach us anything else than that, is we need each other, right? Separation was not a good thing. But finding coaches, right? And allow yourself, invest in yourself. That's a big thing. So I started with a health coach, but then my first mindset kind of coach person that I started working with, when I started my first 6-month engagement working with him, and I had a conversation with him and he told me what the cost was. And this was still early on in my days when we still did not have luxury money by any stretch of the imagination. And he told me what a 6-month engagement was going to cost. And I said it to my husband and he went, we can't afford that. And I was the one who usually called the shots with finances anyway. He's like, we can't afford that. And I said, I can't afford not to. I knew that was what I needed. I knew that if I was going to grow in my business, that was what I needed. And he was not a business coach. He was really a mindset person, which is part of why my husband was like, what are you doing? It would be one thing to hire a business coach. It's going to tell you what to do to grow your business. And I said, no. And I needed this. And so he was like, okay, if you're this insistent. So he put it on a credit card. We never should have put it on. But in that 6-month engagement, my business grew exponentially more than it has ever grown in any 6-month period. And it was the best money ever invested in. My husband will tell you that now. And I ended up working with this coach for a very long time. I worked with him actually until he had a tragedy in his family and he pulled back from coaching anybody during that time. But since then, I have always had at least one, if not two, and sometimes three coaches in different things. And that's been huge because that we can't do this all in our heads, right? We come up with these things and we talk ourselves in and out of things that don't necessarily make sense. And so also, if you have a coach though, recognize when that time, you don't need to stick with the same person all the time, right? You'll get what you need to get out of them and move forward. One of the things that I like to teach people, that's sort of my third tip, is I take people through a method called willpower, thrill power, skill power. So everything that you're going to start with is going to start with willpower, right? Starting a business, getting healthy, losing weight. I don't care what it is, right? Everything starts with willpower. You have a reason and that willpower kicks in. If all you do is willpower, you cannot do anything on willpower alone. That's where we fail, right? That willpower goes and it only has some amount of life. For some of us, it's minutes. For some days, it's for some weeks, for some months, right? But at some point, that willpower hits a wall. But within that willpower, we get the thrill of the success. When the weight loss, we get the thrill of the scale moving. With business, we get the thrill of having that first client. With whatever it is, right? We get that thrill power. And I teach people, if doesn't come quickly and easily, look for the thrill power. Look for the wins. Start to find that, because that thrill power feeds the willpower and it keeps it going. It keeps it moving. It keeps that wheel spinning. But if you just stop at willpower and thrill power, that's going to die at some point. So while you're doing that, you need to be building the skills. And that's where getting a mentor taps in. That's where reading a lot of books, listening to podcasts, trying new things, right? Fail forward. I'm a big fail forward person. Jump in, do it. And if it doesn't work, oh well, right? What did I learn from it, right? Build those skills, because when the willpower and the thrill power wane, it's the skills that you're going to tap into. But the only way to gain those skills is through the practice, which comes through the willpower and the thrill power. So those are my big tips for people that are starting out. Jump in and go, right? That's really like the bottom line with it.
Those are great. And I love the willpower, thrill power, skill power. That is amazing. I've never heard that. So that's super cool.
Thank
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and we're going to play a game.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. You picked this or that. Takeout or dine out?
Take out.
Trivia night or board game night?
Probably board game night.
Ninjas or pirates?
Ooh, that's hard. Probably ninjas.
Nice. Tacos or burritos?
Tacos.
Hope you're not gonna get hungry. Scary movies or comedy movies?
Oh, definitely comedy movies. I don't like scary movies. I don't like to be scared.
I love comedy. What's your favorite comedy?
Oh, I don't know. I like them all. Not the really my husband likes those really raunchy, stupid comedies. That's not I'm more of like the romantic comedy of
Okay, gotcha,
no.
gotcha. That's cool. I love them all.
Yeah.
Bar of soap or shower gel?
Shower gel.
Same. Travel in time or travel through space?
Ooh, that's hard. Probably travel in time. There's a lot of places in time that I'd like to see.
Foresee the future or change the past?
I wouldn't change the past because the past is what got me here, but I don't know that I'd want to see the future either.
Yeah, that's
I don't
tough.
know that I'd want to do either. Probably, possibly see the future, but definitely not change the past.
Awesome. Do laundry or do the dishes?
Laundry,
Yeah.
though I don't like either. I avoid both at all costs.
Stars or lightning?
Lightning. I like a good lightning storm.
Yeah. Be a world-class spy or a supermodel?
World class spy. I have no
Awesome.
desire to be a model.
I
I
love that.
would go on all kinds of adventures. I like adventure. I like to travel. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I could have probably guessed that for you.
Yeah.
I love that. So tell me about your freebie that you have.
Yeah, I have an assessment that's called the Habit Finder Assessment that is what I like to call the unpersonality test. It is not your typical personality test. What it does is it actually uses math, and I'm not a math person, so please don't ask me to explain the math behind it because I am a feelings and emotions person, not a math girl. But it does use math, but it assesses your habits of thinking. So when you take this assessment, it then comes out and it talks about in two different sections. The first section is inner world, how you view the world, like when you're looking in the mirror, your own world. And then the second half is talking about the outer world when you're looking out the window and how you view the outer world and how you interact with people and how you interact in work. But these things totally mesh together and overlap. It's a free assessment and you can take it at understandyourhabits.com. And then the gold though is in the debrief. You want to make sure that you take it's a free debrief. It's usually a 60-minute debrief. And this is where we dive in and we look at these habits. Now, if you get this result and you're going to look at it and first of all, probably not understand what it means, but you might. And if you look at it, you're going to start to jump to conclusions that certain things mean certain things. But as we do the debrief, we're going to look at, and first of all, we're going to see which of these habits are really serving you and which of these are sabotaging your goals and how they all link together. How something in one category under the ability to create your dreams may be enhancing or stealing the joy from your life that's then messing with your self-worth, which then is impacting how you are relating to other people. It all totally connects in. That's where the debrief helps to connect these dots. But the beautiful thing about this is that just like any other habit in our life, they can be changed. So just like when I gained the habit of drinking only water instead of the sodas that I used to love to drink, that's a habit. I had to build that habit. So habits of thinking are exactly the same way. They can be shifted, they can be changed if they're not serving you. So we can look at those things and we can see this is where my mind habitually goes to in certain situations. Does this help me? Sometimes it does. Is it sabotaging me? Sometimes it does. And then we can start to work on those to make those shifts. And we start to see that when one thing shifts, how all of it starts to line up and change. I personally take this test every 6 months. When I work with clients, we do it every 6 months, but I personally redo it every 6 months. And I have somebody who debriefs me on it. Because again, just like I said before, I coach people to lose weight. I can coach people through all this, but we can't coach ourselves. So I still have someone who asks me the questions, who debriefs me on it so that we can explore, because I can make up any crazy things that it means anything I want it to mean, right? Which is why I would say definitely when you take this assessment, schedule that debrief because that's where the gold is. That's where you're going to really understand what this is and how to make those shifts if you want to make changes in your life.
That is such a great gift that you give to people.
Thank
How
you.
amazing is that? Tell me about all your services that you have right now, currently.
Yeah, so I do a variety of different things. I have a variety of different ways that people can work with me. So I do 8-week group coaching sessions that start not quite every 8 weeks. I have some that overlap. So there are constantly rotating groups of 8-week group coaching sessions for somebody who wants to jump in but isn't ready for one-on-one coaching. All of my coaching, depending on where you are, is which tools I tap into and use. So somebody who just wants the mindset pieces of it, I have a curriculum that will take you through and we'll do just those mindset pieces. I have one-on-one just emotion release sessions where people can come in and do, usually those are in blocks of 6, just where we come in and just find those trapped emotions and just release them. And it's not a whole lot of coaching within it, but just to get started and clear those things. A lot of times when people have a trauma or have something that just they can't move forward from, we come in, or a physical ailment, like the client that I was talking about before, who had the equilibrium stuff. So we're not doing any special coaching. We're just clearing that trapped energy at this point. She may go into a coaching program later, but that was the focus. And then I have both a 6-month and a 9-month long one-on-one coaching where we do emotion release and we do mindset and we do all of those pieces together, which is really fun because we come into a session and sometimes I'll have in my head, we're going to discuss this. And then we get on and we just make a right turn and totally change what we're discussing or doing, or what tool we need to use based on that day, based on something that has come up. Or none of my coaching, whether you're in my group coaching or in my 6-month or 8-month long coaching, it's not what I call punch card coaching. So it's not you have a session and you are hanging on your own in between sessions. I'm there. I'm very hands-on with clients, so they can always reach out if something's going on. They can get in contact with me. That's all part of my coaching engagements. And I'm getting ready to launch also a subscription-based program where people can subscribe monthly and come into where it's just energy clearing once, and we'll do weekly energy clearings that are group energy clearings. Because I have been running 4-week-long classes. And instead of just having a class that starts every 4 weeks, it's just going to be an ongoing thing that people can come in month at a time, and it'll be a rolling wherever they come in. So if they come in at the 15th of the month, they'll just get billed every month on the 15th of the month until they stop. So that's getting ready to start. I'm starting that at the beginning of October. That'll be launching. Yeah. So lots of fun ways for people to get involved, tap in, and use any or all of the different tools that I have.
Do you have the specific reading of the voice thing? Is that part of a program or
That
is
is part of it. So, people who come in to any of my coaching programs get part of that, can have the voices. Anybody also, and I'll throw this in as a second freebie, anybody who wants to try a first set of tones for free can also connect with me and I will get them a free set of tones to try those tones for free. And so some people like to have me do the tones for them. And I also do a 21-day tones challenge where they sign up to get tones from me Monday through Friday for 3 weeks. Every day they get new tones. They send me a new voice note every morning, and I send them back their tones every day for those 21 days. A lot of people, when they start that, end up wanting the software themselves because then they can just run them for themselves whenever they want. It doesn't just have to be once in the morning. They can do it as often as they want. And once you have the software, you can do it for as many people as you want. You can run it for your whole family. So people who have kids or spouses or parents, whoever, you can run it for whoever you want as often as you want. You have control over that. There's lots of different ways to utilize that. And when I talk to people one-on-one, I dive into all the different options as to what makes the most sense. So yeah, so as a second freebie, if somebody wants to try those tones out, they absolutely can.
that's amazing. I will for
Okay,
sure.
good.
Definitely. I love that. I never even heard of it. I love that idea and definitely will put my 2 cents in at the end of
Awesome. Awesome. And I know you said before you like vitamins and supplements. So one of the cool things that software can do is you can put all of your supplements, all of your therapies, everything in there. And when it scans your body in certain parts of the scan, it will tell you exactly what your body needs at that time. So you're taking the supplements that you actually need, because so often we take supplements and we have no idea what our body actually needs or doesn't need. So it tells you what your body needs at that time. And you can make custom homeopathics with it. There's so much, like, you can go down a rabbit hole with what you can do with software. It's really cool.
With your programs, are they in person or are they online? Are they through like a Zoom type thing or
Zoom.
how?
So almost everybody, unless if you're local, I live in Orlando. So if somebody's local, I'll happily meet with them in person, but almost everybody, even my local people, it's on Zoom. So
Okay, awesome. That being said, I just want to first thank you. And then I have 2 final questions for you to end with. But first, thank you so much for meeting with me and sharing your gifts. Like, amazing. I loved learning so much from you and all the amazing work you're doing in the world.
thank
How
you.
great are you? Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, the first one is tell me what legacy means to you and how it plays a role in your life.
Oh, wow. That you just hit the legacy is a big deal to me. Helping shift the world, right? That's one of my favorite children's book is The Little Bug That Went Cuckoo, right? It's about this. I don't know if you ever read it, but this bug that sneezes and causes this ripple effect, this little sneeze and how it ripples around the world and you don't even know. And to me, that's how I live my life every day. A lot of people talk about this big purpose. What is our big purpose in the world? And I believe that we probably have many big purposes, not just one. But I believe that we have a purpose in every day. And what can we do in every day? Whose life can we touch every day? We don't even realize what we're doing when we're just living and trying to live and help people. Going back to my father. So my father and I were very close. He was also into some of this work and we worked together. And he got into coaching because of me, because he also wanted to help people. And when he was on his last, actually, it was the day before he passed away, and he could no longer speak, but he understood everything that was going on. And so I sat and I was talking to him. My father, like me, apple does not fall far from the tree, could talk a lot. But when he was talking, you couldn't get a word in edgewise. I was sitting there with him and I said, okay, now you can't talk anymore, right? It's my turn. But I said to him, I said, you started a legacy. And he did. He left, a tremendous legacy. I get phone calls and reach outs on a multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day as to people just remembering him and what he did for them and whatever. And I said to him, I said, you started this legacy and I'm taking this on. So now I'm going to cry. So that really, it is a big piece to me to changing this world, like in any small way that I can. Who can I touch? Who can I impact? Who can I help to make this world a better place? I believe that that's why I'm here. I believe that's why we're all here. And so that was a big thing for me. So yeah,
That's beautiful.
thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with
You're
me.
welcome.
The final question is, tell me how you mark this time in your life right now.
Oh, wow. So I mark all time in my life. Like this to me, my kids are 16, 14, and 12, almost 13. And this is the most amazing time. I told you that where I started was afraid to take care of my own kids when they were younger, right? I hired people to take care of them. And now this is an amazing time because we homeschool them now. If you had told me 7.5 years ago I'd be homeschooling my kids, I would have told you were absolutely out of your mind. But it's now because I couldn't take care of them. Like, please go to school, right? Like it's less hours. And now it's like I can't have enough of that when it's where are we going to go and what are we going to do and travel and adventure and really just that's really what this point in my life is. I look at my oldest who's 16, she's in 11th grade and it's okay. Like it happens so fast, right? And I don't think she's going to go too far because we're all pretty close. So I don't think right away she's going to go too far. But this is a really precious time for me and my family and being very thankful. I feel very blessed that I was able to spend the time with my father. They were in Kentucky. So I spent 3 months in Kentucky. I was with him for the last 2.5 months. And I stayed a little bit longer to help my mom. Very blessed that my husband like held down the fort and took care of what needed to be taken care of. But that I've built a life that we can do that we went from this life of where everything was a struggle to it's not, right? It's not that we don't have our struggles. Everybody has struggles, right? Life is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but that we've created a life that we can handle the struggles. That they don't knock us down the way they used to. Yeah, things are hard and we still have all the same stuff that everybody has and people look at my highlight reel, but when there's definitely a lot of things behind the scenes. But that I know that we can handle it and that we've made it through so much that we're going to make it through one day at a time, one moment at a time, but that we'll make it through. And that with each one, we'll get stronger and stronger. So that's how I mark this time in my life right now is like family and as much time as I can be with them because time goes too fast.
For
So,
sure. You wake up one day and it's like, whoa, where did it go?
yeah. Yeah. If you had told me a year ago that my father wouldn't be a year ago now, we were already starting to watch the quick decline, but a year and a half ago, nobody would have ever believed that. Even when he was diagnosed, it was, he's the man with 9 lives. He's going to outlive all of us. He's outlived all these crazy other things in his life. And man plans, God laughs. But it's so appreciate every single moment that you have.
When did he pass? I didn't ask.
Last November, the week before Thanksgiving. So he was diagnosed in March of 2022 and passed away in November of 2022. So it was quick, but he was good and he was strong until he wasn't. And then the last 2.5 months were a quick decline, but he was still even strong through the decline, which was interesting. Like it was really like the last week. It was like a fast.
What a great dad.
Yeah.
I love that you had a great dad. Like it's
Yeah.
made me feel like so happy for you.
Thank you.
That you had that and you got those moments and that you are inspired by him and you are the strength that he had. He transferred it to you. What a blessing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep.
So
I feel very blessed.
Thank you so much for sharing a part of you with me and all of us. And I look forward to seeing all of your success in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was fun. And hopefully my story can inspire somebody to make that they're sitting on that ledge scared, move forward. Life's too short to not. So,
Absolutely. If you're listening, you were meant to listen to this. Thank you.
thank you.
Leslie's journey from being stressed and unhealthy to becoming a fit, energetic, and empowered life coach was a great conversation. Leslie described how she used a combination of weight loss, mindset change, energy work, and habits to transform her life, and now helps others do the same. I had a chance to use her inner voice scan, and it was so good. I highly recommend you reach out and take her up on both of her freebies. Her links are in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening and getting to know Leslie on this week's episode. Tune in next week for another Empowering Time Markers episode. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Empowering Time Markers. We hope you found inspiration, gained valuable insights, and connected with our incredible guest. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us continue to bring you empowering content. And remember, the journey doesn't end here. Stay connected with us on social media, where we'll be sharing additional resources, behind-the-scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes. Thank you for joining us on this empowering journey. Together, let's continue to make our mark on the world one moment at a time. Until then, keep empowering yourself and others. This is Tia Bottum, signing off from Empowering Time Markers.